Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome back to the No BS Human Design Podcast. I'm your host, Adriana, and I am very excited because we are now officially on YouTube with the podcast as well. And that's just up here if you want a visual component to anything that we're talking about. Maybe you want to see the face of myself or the other person I'm talking to. Or in this situation, I actually have my body graph up so I can show you exactly what we're going to be talking about in this episode. So, before we dive in, I want to give you one last reminder that this is the last week to sign up for our community at the current beta cost of $22 a month. If you've been following me for even like a minute, you've been hearing me talk nonstop about the upcoming rebrand. I am so amped about it. And what we're doing is taking Human Design Society, which was strictly about human design education and integration and how to reinforce living with your design. And we're turning it into something that's so much more than that. Like the why behind why it's important to lean into who you authentically are, the why behind human design. It's all of the culmination of people asking me for almost like a spiritual church where there's a like-minded sisterhood of women who are looking to grow in their sense of spirituality, spiritually curious, if you will. And we're taking all the tools of human design, other guest experts tools, other somatic tools, and we're bringing it all to one space of a community of spiritually curious women. So I'm very, very excited. That rebrand is officially kicking off and happening over the summer. You're probably not going to see the name change or anything like that until maybe end of summer, early fall. However, the price is going up as of next week. So it's currently $22 a month. If you enroll in Human Design Society as is today, you will get it for $22 a month forever. You're being grandfathered in at that price. Starting next week, it is going up to $27 a month. So still less than $1 a day, but hey, a few bucks extra back in your pocket every month, why not? And if feeling spiritually curious is an alignment to you, if you're like, oh my God, I would love to be in an environment that's much like Adriana's co-create new moon circles, but like all the time, yes, count me in. Then the link is in the show notes below. Join us today to get in at the beta price forever. And you will just naturally be transitioned into everything new that's unfolding. And I'm really, really stoked about it. Plus, we have really cool guest experts this month, like my friend Kristen, who is an intuitive coach. And people kept asking me how to identify what their sense of intuition was, how to connect with it, like what the different clairs are, like what is intuition even, right? Because we're all spiritually curious. We're not really thrown into that world that much. So my girl Kristen is coming in to teach you guys about intuition, all things intuition, how to begin connecting to your intuition. So that's happening in HDS on the 28th. And then we have our live hot seat coaching and Q&A on the 30th. So you get to ask me questions, even if you just enroll today after we already had our monthly workshop. There's still all the recordings in the back library, and you will still get those to May workshop as well. And we have tarot, of course, my girl Katie McMinn coming back with live tarot readings in June. So it's going to be an epic summer. I'm really excited for all that's lined up. Now, moving into today's episode, we're talking all about the head center. So if you're watching here on YouTube, this is my chart. You're seeing my insides. You're welcome. And this little guy at the top, mine is completely blank. It's completely white, completely empty, no activations. This is my head center. You might be familiar with it in the chakra system as like the crown, but we call it the head center in human design. And I have a friend of mine, Rebecca Caldwell, joining me for today's episode because she has a defined head center. So we'll talk about the differences between defined and undefined, and not just from an educational standpoint, but like how does it actually show up in real life? Because that's what my whole thing is about. Like, that's so great to learn about it, but like, what does this actually look like in my life? So Rebecca Caldwell is such a beautiful person. I literally love her. And she's a marketing measurement and paid ads strategist and the owner of Three Groves. You'll be able to find all her info in the show notes if that's someone who you feel like you need to line up in your atmosphere for business purposes or whatnot. And she lives in Tennessee with her family. She's very much like me. She enjoys the outdoors, hiking, camping, going to concerts, and I think we just really vibe, but our vibes are in a total different way. And you'll see what I'm talking about when you listen or watch the episode. I'm very big and bold and out there. And she just has a much more, like, calming, mellow presence than I feel like I do. So it's so fascinating to see how well, like, we can get along with each other being completely different humans, but that's just how our energy plugs into each other, right? So we are going to be talking all about the head center. And if you want to connect with her, check the show notes. She left you some beautiful free resources in there as well. And I will see you on the other side. Welcome to the No BS Human Design Podcast. I'm Adriana Keefe, human design coach and motivational speaker. Well, hello there, beautiful. I'm so excited to host you for your first ever podcast interview. That's exciting.
I'm so excited to be here. A little sweaty maybe, but really, really excited.
This is probably like the best first podcast you could be on because it's so low key and conversational and just you can swear. So you just don't edit yourself. You're fine.
I was thinking about that when I was listening to some episodes. I'm like, this is so great. What a good icebreaker.
Oh, thank you for listening.
You're welcome.
I would love for you to take a minute to just tell anyone who's listening who you are. Who is Rebecca?
Okay, cool. My name's Rebecca, and I live right at the base of the Great Smoky Mountains with my husband and my daughter and my mother-in-law and my two dogs, who are also kind of like my children. I am a marketing, measurement, and paid ad strategist for small business owners who are really looking to build a business that supports their life, not the other way around.
Amen. So naturally, you like to follow things like human design and astrology and
Mhm.
energetics. So what is your human design and your top three in astrology?
All right. I am a 2/4 splenic projector, and I have a Gemini sun, a Leo moon, and a Libra rising.
Woohoo. Leo moon and Libra rising. That's an interesting duo.
Yeah, it's a wild life is a wild ride.
That ain't that the truth. Okay. It's so funny. I was just having a conversation the other day with someone who we joked about how we always envy people who have splenic authority. I don't know
Mm.
what it is. I love myself the way I'm designed, but fuck, do sometimes I wish I were just like splenic. Like there's something about that splenic. I just love it. Maybe it's the quick decision making, just being able to move on. Do you feel like that
Mhm.
resonated with you when you first learned?
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think the reason that it resonated is like the spidey senses. I've always been able to be like, nah, nah, no, we're not gonna, whether it's a person, a place, an experience, I have a spidey sense. And I feel like when I learned about it, I was like, oh, that is real.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I love that. And so today we are focusing on the head center, but that doesn't mean that we won't talk about everything else. Naturally, everything else at some point comes up because they're all related. But for if you're new and you're listening or watching, the head center is like the crown in the chakra system. And this is where we have insights and inspiration. Some of our thinking happens here. And me, I am undefined or completely open. I actually have no gates, nothing defined in the head center. Very
Wow.
open. Literally, they like probably one of the most open minded people. That being said, it can lead to its struggles, and we'll get into that. And Rebecca has a defined head center. So I'm really excited to talk about that because with the defined head, it's so interesting for me to even try and think about because I can't comprehend it like on my
Mm,
own. It's this consistent mental energy. You are someone who inspires others who are undefined here to think and to find that like lean into that inspiration. But of course, there's pros and cons to everything too. So
yeah.
I'm super curious to hear about what you have learned about your defined head center and maybe what resonated, what didn't. I guess tell me everything that's on the top of your head about your
All
defined
right.
head center.
Okay, cool. So I have the channel of logic, which is the 63-4, and it connects my defined head center to my defined ajna. And I think when I first started learning about human design, you get your chart and then you're like, oh, down the rabbit hole we go. So, one of the
Mhm.
first things that I realized when I was learning about the channel that I have is I've always known that I have like an ability to spot patterns. And I didn't really know where it came from, but that is one of the benefits of having the channel of logic. And so, on the flip side of that, though, I find that I have a lot of pressure to find the answer. What's the right answer? What's the right way to do this? What's the best way to do this? The most effective way to do this? And I also have a tendency maybe to be a little like suspicious or apprehensive, like, let me think about that. Let me ask you eight trillion questions so that I make sure that I understand it so I can make the best educated decisions. Those are kind of the things that like really resonate. I also tend to have a little bit of anxious energy, and that comes with that constant mental pressure to find the answers. But we're actively working on that.
I feel like the head center there's a lot of talk about anxiety and depression in the defined head. But what's so
Mhm.
interesting is I also see that a ton in undefined head centers or open head centers. I think I've said this before on the podcast and with my clients. There's a lot of human design educators who will teach the not self of a defined being different than the not self of an undefined. And what I found with myself and with my clients and everyone in my membership community, they can really be intertwined. Like
Yeah.
I have a lot of anxiety. I've always dealt with anxiety. And a
Mhm.
lot of it, I can now that I'm able to understand the process and like see and pick up what I'm doing in my brain,
Mhm.
a lot of it comes from the open head center and the constant like swirling and taking in. But what I'm curious about is how it starts for you because what I see how it starts for me is I'll be taking in like podcast episodes or some sort of content from someone I admire or my coach or mentor, like whoever. And then I have all of these ideas swirling around in my brain. And then it's like a hamster on a wheel. And I'm just like, oh my God, what do I do? Which one do I do? How do I get there faster? Blah, blah, blah. And of course, I have that defined route. That's like the pressure
Mhm.
to go, go, do, do. And then it sends me into just this state of anxiety. How do you feel like it starts for you? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think that anxiety normally starts for me from like trying to solve the problem. What's the best way? What's the most effective way? And then I think because I have an open route, so I have a lot of pressure to do the thing, but sometimes like just can't do them. And then I also kind of like take on the stress of other people. So I think that's kind of where my anxiety normally comes from. Like if I were in a room by myself and I had a to-do list and nobody was like needing things, I would just do the to-do list and I would have no you just work your list. But I think then, that's like not how life works. We all have people that we interact with and, responsibilities that we have. So I think mine probably comes from like, am I doing all the things that I could be doing or should be doing or want to be doing for that other being?
Mm, yep, it's clicked in my brain now. I'm seeing the difference because with me, with my open head, it feels almost more high level with like I could do all of these things. Which one of these things do I want to do? And with you, it sounds like, no, I'm going to do this thing, but how do I want to systematize it? Which process do I want to do? How do I want to think about this? And then you can get obsessive over the specific details. Does that sound right?
100%, like,
Okay.
planning myself in circles, and then I'm like, "Ooh, I'm worn out, and I did nothing."
Yes. And it's something that I still battle with often. Not
Mhm,
not every week. It used to be every single day. I'd say I've gotten a lot better because I catch it when it happens and I'm like, "Oh, okay, this is me just spiraling based on external sources saying what's best or what would really work." And then I just go into the woods or I go somewhere quiet and I just sit with myself and let myself feel it, sleep on it, my emotional authority, let it all click through. And then I find my answer. But man, before I knew this, holy shit, I would be like trying to do all of these suggestions at once or just spiraling thinking about which one, which one, which one. And it was
mhm.
so exhausting. And then I'd sit
Yeah.
down at my desk and I would have everything to do and no clue where to start. And I would just be overwhelmed. And like you said, get to the end of my day having done nothing.
Yeah. I feel like that's like one of life's greatest like journeys. That's something that you're gonna work through like your whole life is like, how do I organize my to-do list? Or what do I decide? I started asking myself, is this urgent? Is this important? Or is this interesting? Because I find that a lot of times I might think about neglecting the important things for something that's interesting. But if I could just remove some of that pressure by doing the important things first, then I'll have lots of time to do the interesting things. So I'm really working on like prioritizing in a way that feels good to myself, but also like makes me efficient. So I have lots of time to do what I want to do.
I really
And
like that.
yeah, it's
That,
a recent realization.
yeah. I feel like when I used to learn a lot about time productivity, the urgent versus important was a big thing.
Mhm,
And I just kind of forgot about it. And then now that you say it
mhm,
like that, urgent versus important versus interesting,
mhm.
that's like such a great way to categorize it because that's something I think I'd be able to do right away. Like, oh no, it's just
Mhm.
that I find this like my sacral lit up. It's exciting. It feels interesting. And it doesn't mean it's a right now thing. Oh, I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Trademark it.
yeah, right?
All right. So let's see. The other aspects of the open head center that can be challenging for me, thinking about all the things that don't actually matter to me, try to answer everyone else's problems and questions. That in connection with my open heart, I can definitely be someone who feels like I have to overcompensate and be really overwhelmed with like doubt about myself. Let's see what else. I think it's really just honestly spiraling, like
Yeah.
not catching what's truly important to me, the trying to have to know all the things for someone else. How do you feel like if any of that, does any of that resonate with you? And what's the difference if it does?
Yeah, I think it resonates, but in maybe like a little bit of a different way because I have a defined head. I also have a defined heart. I often am able to just or do this to some people. Like I will just be like, that's not important. We don't need to like these are the important things. So some maybe I tend to like make a decision for other people what's important. And then I'm like, okay, this is all we need to know, or maybe because I have the defined head and I have to see the patterns, I get stuck until I have all of my answers. I think that's really it. I get stuck until I have all of the answers and then I can kind of move forward. But if I'm working on something and I like don't understand one piece of the puzzle or I feel like I need really direct answers, I'm kind of like, okay, like your kid when they're just like staring
Yep.
at you, like that's how I feel. Like, okay, but if you answer my questions, I'll go away now. Um,
That makes total sense. Total sense. Um, I feel like there was something else I wanted to say about the not self, but I lost it. Well, we already talked about anxiety. What about making sense of things? I guess you kind of just mentioned it, the impatience piece. Because like you normally, what I'm guessing from just my education and my clients, what I would think normally happens is that you typically understand how you need to systematize or process things. And then when you can't have all those pieces, when they're not all put together right away, that's where that impatience comes through. Does that resonate?
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And for me, I
I'm
just
not very good with like half information. Like if you need
yeah.
something from me or you're explaining something to me, like, okay, give me all of the details. And then I'll put it all together in a really nice bow and give it back to you.
And for me, having all the details sometimes is overwhelming. I'll
That's
be
so
like, okay,
interesting.
just feed me a little bit at a time. And then I let it
Mhm,
all process. And I'm also like a split definition. So I have to like wait till it trickles down to the rest of me and then it'll click and then I'll get it. So
mhm,
that's yeah, I never really thought about that. But yeah, I usually like bits and pieces, bite-sized things. I like quick podcast episodes because I like to actually integrate what I've learned. I
mhm,
used to be the impatient manifesting generator who would just take in all the knowledge, and I never did anything. I never changed because I wasn't actually implementing it. And I've learned it's because I would just get so overwhelmed and I'd spiral with all the possibilities.
Mhm.
Wonderful. We have so many possibilities in this day and age with technology. And it's also like the worst thing for mental health. So
Yeah.
that's really interesting to put that together, that you're like, no, I need to complete this puzzle. And I'm like, no,
Mhm.
let me sit with this one piece for a little while and then I'll circle back and pick up the rest.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear your experience too, because I think that's something that's like a piece I will definitely take moving forward when working with other people. Like maybe they're just peace people, like too. And
Hmm.
in my quest to solve said puzzle, I'm like irritating them.
This is why I love so many of my clients and so many of my members in Human Design Society now use human design with their clients. And it's not that they
Mhm.
have to be an expert, but at least they understand like what type they are, what their authority is, maybe what centers they have, like, and then they can help them understand or communicate on a different level that's easier for
Mhm.
them. It is so much more effective. Do you find that
Yeah.
you use human design with your clients? Yeah, I
Yeah,
thought so.
anybody that will give me their birthday. I'm like, "When were you born? Where were you born?" I have my husband's chart and my daughter's chart, and actually, my daughter's a 1-3, and
Mm.
I always kind of felt like, well, why doesn't she just listen? Why does she have to do everything herself? But
Yep.
then I realized,
Yep.
like, oh, that's like the way in which she's supposed to be. So knowing
Mhm.
that about her is kind of like let me step back a little bit. But yeah,
Yeah.
anybody that will give me their birthday. And then I just tell them like, well, this is what I know, but I've only really gone down a rabbit hole for myself and my family. So
Mhm.
here's lots of people that you can also follow to go down said rabbit.
Yep. And does your daughter have an open head center?
Not sure. I just know that she's a 1-3 generator. So
The defined head can sometimes, but like how you just mentioned with you never really thought that other people would want bite-sized things. It just makes me think if your daughter had an open head center, especially, the defined head puts that mental pressure on other people to think and think and
mm,
think. And because it's so obvious to you that that's what you need to do for your process, you can't understand why someone else needs to just go and do something or do something completely different. Like it doesn't even have to be related. And
yeah,
then later it'll click into place. So I'm curious if she has an open head
I'm
that
gonna
might help.
look. I'll look when we
Yeah.
get off.
Yeah.
Send you a
That'll
DM
help.
and let you know.
Yeah. It's definitely something that I have seen a lot with people who have the defined head and ajna,
Mhm,
really. Like you just
mhm,
have this process and it's just so natural and innate to you to just like have all these thoughts like yeah, like puzzle pieces like put into a perfect little pattern and you're like this is how we do it.
mhm.
Why can't you just think about it?
Yeah.
And then if someone like said that to me, I'd be like, wow, like just leave me alone. I need to just go for a walk in the woods and then it'll click in later for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So let's talk about the actual gifts of the head center, defined or undefined. With your defined head center, there's for an obvious, like I see this in all my clients and friends who have the defined head and defined ajna, like there's this just this way of how do I want to say this? The way your brain works, it's like you just like look at something and then it just like some of the people who I know who have the defined head are people who work in some sort of accounting, like with
Mm,
taxes and money, or are online business managers, OBMs. And
mhm,
they just see exactly how to process things and like conceptualize exactly what needs to be done in a very thinking, analytical, and I know that's getting into a little bit of the ajna, but like you obviously have a defined ajna too because you have
mhm,
before. So
mhm.
what do you see as your gifts with a defined head?
Yeah, I think exactly what you said. Like in the work that I do, because I do some like marketing strategy stuff and I have a couple clients where I'm like kind of filling in an OBM role. So really kind of like a marketing manager role. I find that those pieces are exactly what is exciting to me to do, the pieces that are exciting to do and also that I'm really good at. So it's like that sort of project managing, like, okay, what's this project? What do we need to do? And in which way can we do it the most effectively?
Because you like to think.
I like to think.
I don't. I love to be inspired. I love to watch documentaries on Gaia. I love to listen to speakers, and then I love to just let it flow through me and just follow what lights me up. And you like to be in this shit and
Yeah.
think about it. Like, that
Yeah.
sounds awful to me.
Well, how do you like I don't even know what it would feel like to just be like, "Yes, okay, it flew through me." Like, that what? No.
Well,
No,
that
yeah,
is
so now we have to go to the internet and learn the things, that's like
Yeah,
how my like, how my brain works.
yeah.
It's so interesting to think about.
It's definitely like it's like an art form, learning how to let it pass through you, and then
Yeah.
learning, I mean, because 'cause I'm a manifesting generator, so I need to just wait to respond to what's coming up for me. And then
Mhm.
when I built that, I guess there's a lot of pieces. I built that trust with the universe that I would have things to respond to, and then I also really honed in on my nervous system. And this is
Mm,
this is literally what I do for work with my clients. Like, how do we ground you? How do we make your nervous system able to receive information and then just let it go instead of spiraling? So it's been a lot of work to get to that point. I
yeah.
used to try and sit and think, and it doesn't
Mm.
pan out. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I think the control, like managing our nervous system or learning how to work with our nervous system is such a huge piece of some of the things that maybe we're missing, that we're not like taught about, like our parents don't know, so they don't teach us, or they don't teach us in school. It's not something that, we're educated on, but I really think that that's one of the keys to like having a fruitful life is being able to
Mm,
like relax your nervous system so that you can enjoy things, you be grateful, you like are at rest. You're not constantly in like that fight, flight, fawn responses. I think those are really easy because life's not easy, like lots of everybody has some sort of struggle. It's really easy to kind of get stuck in that the things that are bad, but I think the
mhm.
nervous system work is so important.
Right, well, obviously, 1,000% I agree because I do
Yeah.
it. But so then in those moments, so like when I'm feeling the mental pressure building in my head, I can literally feel it now. I'm very aware of what it
Mhm.
is. And then so I'll go and I'll do an exercise of some sort, walk in the woods or whatever, and I'll let it release and move through me. So if you find that you are overthinking, being impatient, putting too much pressure instead of letting the pieces fall into place, what do you do?
Yeah, this is gonna sound super nerdy, but I make a list. I think like, so, okay, cool. You have all these, you did all your thinking. Now let's take your thinking out of your brain and onto paper. And then you can do with it what you need to do. If that means you need to let it sit, you need to marinate, you need to think some more, you need to then like use it to create a plan or whatever, you can do it. But it's like getting it out of my brain and onto something else, whether that's a Google Doc or like sticky notes or in my journal. You just got to get it out.
Yeah. I second that just from having anxiety. I'm like, if I write it down, I'll be able to let it go. And then it
Yeah.
just, I know it's written down. It's on you should see how many reminders I have on my phone. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I'm like a sticky note queen. I have like a wall of sticky notes. I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't say.
Yep. So many sticky notes, but it's so helpful, especially for anxious thinkers, whether you have
Mhm.
defined head or not, it doesn't matter. Um, just getting something like pen to paper makes it feel so much better.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk about my allergies are killing me. Ugh. The root and the head connection,
Mm.
because they're both pressure centers. And while they don't seem like they're that related and that connected because they're so far away from each other on the body graph, everything is connected. And in the head, you receive the mental pressure, you receive the insights, inspiration, pressure from source, God, universe, whatever you choose to believe up there, Sky Daddy. And then in the root, I love that one. In the
I've
root,
never heard that. That's fantastic.
oh, so one of my mentors uses it, and I can't even take credit. It's so good though. And in the root, it's the pressure of action. It's the pressure to do, the
Mm.
pressure from the ground, and to bring things into the material plane. So with me, I have an open head, but I have a defined root, and it can feel like such a clash at times because my open head will end up trying to take action on something. Wait, let me back that up. No, my defined root tries to force the rest of me to take action on something. And my open head is like, there's so many things I could take action on. I don't know what the right step is. What if I do this? What if I do that? And then it just leads to overwhelm. And then in me, anxiety comes up as like chest pain and just feeling this
Mm,
heaviness on my chest. And I've really had to learn to heal my root. And
mhm,
that's been through like a lot of grounding, a lot of nervous system work because root center for me shows up as fight or flight mode. It's panic mode.
mhm,
It's get up, get out of bed, go, or you're never going to get this done today. Whereas people
mhm.
who don't have a defined root, I'm actually my husband. He like, I don't think he has that urge to jump out of bed in the morning to get things done. Like, it's just more moseying out of bed. Things will get done when they get done. And I'm like, what? We had to do everything. We had to do all the things. So you have the opposite. You have the defined head, but the open root center. So
Mhm.
does any of that resonate with you, or is it total opposite?
Yeah, I don't eat have the I don't wanna jump out of bed either. The I don't have that. But I do find that sometimes because I'm deeply sensitive to, like, the stress of other people, that I will kind of pop into that not self and be, like, really anxious, and so I will do and 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 do for other people, and so really this year specifically, I'm trying to, like, just take a beat. Like, what do you need so that you can then do all the things? So I have the marketing channel also, which is the 2644. And so that gives me the ability to just like do the things way faster than anybody else. But I think I was neglecting that, So I'm like, have all this pressure. And I'm like, oh man, I need to do all the things. So I need to work this 12, 14 hour long day. When really, if I just took a beat, made the list, prioritized the list, did a little nice thing for myself, then I can just come smash that workout. And then I'm like, okay, I did all the things you guys wanted me to do. I'm done, you know? But I don't think I was like taking advantage of having that ability. I was really getting stuck in, oh, but I have to work all the time. Oh, but I have to earn my rest. Oh, there's things to be done. But I mean, when do we not have like a never ending to-do list? I mean, there's always more things that you could be doing.
Hmm.
So I think really this year, like learning, well, we're going to hard stop for the day and it's not rocket science or brain surgery. So none of this is super actually important. And you get to like live your life too, so work in progress.
And you've mentioned how that's something that you gift to other people with that. Let's go a little bit slower. Just hang on a
Mhm.
minute. Let's take a look at how we can think about this. Can you explain that?
Yeah. I think because I have the defined head, I can see all the things. Like have you seen the meme where it's like Charlie Day and he has like all the red lines and stuff?
No, but I love Charlie
Oh my
Day.
gosh, I do too. Okay. So, anyways, I'll send you that up too, so you can
Yeah.
see it. But anyway, so it's like had like the murder board or whatever. But I think it's like my brain's like, and then she puts the murder board like all in order. And so I think being able to see all these things and make an organized list and give it to other people is something I'm good at. But I think also like sometimes you can't see the forest through the trees. Sometimes you can't do the things that you're really good at for other people for yourself because you're so close to what's happening. Um, and maybe your worth is tied a little bit to whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. So I think that is probably the difference for me is that like for someone else, I'm like, oh, easy peasy cheesecake. Look, da, 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 just do this. And for me, I'm like, you have to work harder and you're not doing enough.
Yep,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. That makes so much sense. Especially with that defined heart that you have, like just always like using sheer willpower to get through things.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
Yes.
fascinating. It's like I love trying to comprehend these things just from an educational standpoint, but then when I talk to someone about their lived experience, I'm like, "Oh my god, that makes so much more sense." Like I can see how that's all clicking together for you. And
Mhm.
because you're aligned too, I'm just curious, did you notice or even identify as these thought processes being gifts of yours, or did people have to like show you that these were gifts?
I had no clue. I have
Yeah.
no clue. And I've been told a lot lately. I just started blogging for my business. So I'm like, sharing my thoughts, And I've been told a lot lately, like, wow, you make this stuff really easy to understand. And I'm like, oh, I do? Like, yeah. So I think like I had no clue that that sorting of information was a gift until people were like pointing it out to me.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's been really nice to hear, to have somebody kind of like reflects those gift back. So I'm trying to like, I'll receive that compliment and then, remember it because I think a lot of times we don't give ourselves the credit that we deserve.
Oh, 1,000%, especially if
Mhm.
you're aligned too. You like
Mhm.
literally have no idea how good you are at certain things and people have to tell you. How do you see this? Like if you could have a couple of day-to-day examples. I know I didn't prepare you with this question.
That's
So you
okay.
might if you have one, then we'll be lucky.
Okay,
With
cool.
either in your home life, because you're a mom, so there's home
Mhm.
management that I know comes into play with your
Mhm.
day-to-day, or in your work. Like what does it look like to process something through your head and like into the material world? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think probably more so with work because my husband is a saint and does lots of things at home. Um, I think the way in which I process generally, it has a lot to do with like putting the outsides of the puzzles together. I always say like I'm an outside pieces of the puzzle girly. I want to put those all together first, and then I can kind of decide, well, what information do I need to then like line all those things up. So I have a project that comes to me. I like to take a little bit of space to noodle, what I like to call it. A lot of times it happens in the bath, just thinking about like, well, what do I need to know so that I can just make a plan and then we can execute it immediately.
So your home life must be so organized.
We're a little chaotic over here. It's not really organized. I think
Business
that
took the
is
first seat.
it's interesting though, because I think I would love to be like a Pinterest mom with like a labeled
Ugh,
pantry. I would
yeah.
love to be her, but I am not her. Like
Mm-mm.
I think a lot of times like in work, you can keep all that stuff really organized. It's in a spot, it's a thing. But then like when you're at home in your home life, like you're relaxing, you're chilling, you're not maybe like holding up those guards so much. So no, we're not super organized. I mean, I wish, like I would love to be her. I would love to have like totes in the garage that are labeled and a pantry that's labeled and like rice in the jars but no.
No, that
No.
sounds way too tedious for me. Oh, you know what I am dying to know though? How do you plan vacations? If you have an open route, but
Uh
a defined head, talk to me about how you plan vacations.
okay, listen. The problem is that my family is ginormous, and a lot of times we take vacations with said ginormous family who doesn't plan anything.
Oh, yeah.
So normally what happens, like the vacation that I probably had the most control of was a beach vacation that we took when Aubrey was really little. And what I did was to like accommodate everyone. I just made a list of all the things that like we wanted to do. Like this is a list of all the things that we want to do. And when we got there, we looked at the weather and we planned the days so that everybody could kind of know, okay, today we're going to the zoo. So like get up, get your shower, put your zoo clothes on. This day we're hanging out. So do whatever you want to do here. So I think with like the large family, you got to have like a plan with some flexibility, a loose plan, a spreadsheet with no times on it.
But that probably feels good for you anyway with your undefined
Mm-hmm.
route, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's like the total opposite for me. I have just this past year been leaning into letting go of the planning. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess what would usually happen was my route. I mean, first of all, obviously, I'd be so excited about vacation. And I would be trying to put not an agenda, but like just a loose, like, here's all the things we can do. Can everybody let me know about this and that? And my pressure to do was always showing up. But then in my head, there was a lot of overwhelm, especially if people weren't getting back to me. I was always, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'm a line four. I was always the
Mm-hmm.
person getting all the people together. And yes, it gets very exhausting. And so this
Mm-hmm.
past year, I made a commitment to myself to stop being that person with certain exceptions, but to just let it go. And what's
Yeah.
so interesting, and I did not put this together until we're talking about it now, is since letting that go, that expectation, the overwhelm go, I have now received a vacation that's been essentially planned for me by a great friend. We haven't like truly vacationed together. We vacation close by, but like not really far.
Mm-hmm.
and she's more of a planner than I am, and so she's literally done it all and just told me what to book, and I'm like, "I fucking love you." Like, this
Yeah.
feels so good. The universe was just like, "See, when you're patient, here you go."
Yeah. Yes.
Feels so good. And, like,
Yes.
I'll have a little bit of the pressure to, like, look into some of the activities and let it spin around in my head and whatever, but it just feels really go with the flow, and it's so much better for me.
Yeah, and that's kind of fun, right? If you're just like looking at what your friend like kind of put together for you, that's different
Mhm.
because it's like, oh, I'm just looking. I'm just deciding, do I want to go there? Like what do I want to do when I'm there? It's
Yep,
different than having
exactly.
to like, okay, troops. I am also
Mhm.
aligned for. So when we go on vacation, I find that, especially with my huge family, I am normally the one like trying to rally and like I just can't. Like
Yeah,
it's kind of hard sometimes to rally everyone. So
preach.
we decided probably a couple years ago that it was like we didn't have to do everything all together. I think for a long time we were trying to like, okay, this huge group go do everything together.
Yeah.
And in the past couple years, we've gotten a little bit more lax. So then I don't feel like I have to rally all the people because like some people did this and some people did that and some people did that. And then everybody's happy. And so it's a little bit better. I don't feel like I have to like march around and like point at my watch or whatever.
Yep, exactly. Another random question I have for you is, do you find that you enjoy motivational speakers, or is it kind of neutral to you?
Mm, I'm going to go with neutral because I'm very particular about how I want to be motivated and like the character of the person is really important. And also, if it's fluffy, it's irritating. So it really just depends, like I love a good story, but also I'm like, so this is something I've been working through this year. I'm really not a fan of like a really high to low contrast story. If it's real and that's true, wonderful. But I find that oftentimes where we feel like we're forced to fabricate these really high contrast stories, and I'm not a fan of those. So yes, I want to hear about your life, but I want to hear about like just like your real life, like what really happened with like all the
You
nuance included, because there's lots of that.
you totally answered with almost exactly what I would have expected with a defined head.
That's
Because one of the
awesome.
things they say with an open head center is that you're able to really point out like inspiration in other people. Like, who's really inspiring to you? Who do you want to follow? Who has that potential of, I guess, massively inspiring of other people? And so when I thought about it backwards, when I thought about what defined head center, I was like, okay, well, she probably has her own process for her own inspiration. Therefore, she likely doesn't care for motivational speaking that much. Not to say that you wouldn't see someone, but
Mhm.
whereas, like, when I see someone speak, I'm like fucking amped. I'm like, oh
Mhm.
my God. Like, I mean, keep in mind, I'm a speaker too. So I'm like, I love it. It's like a thrill ride for me. And for you, it's just like that neutral. I feel like that neutral is like a good word. So it's
Yeah,
just very interesting, the different ways that we view inspiration too. That's so
yeah,
interesting.
that is really interesting.
I'm
Hmm.
curious, would you ever be a speaker?
I have spoken a couple times and I
Oh,
actually really, really enjoy it.
yeah.
And generally, I'm like teaching something. I've been told a couple times that I should do stand-up comedy, but I always just giggle and say, like, that's just my drama. Like, nobody wants to hear about that. So yeah, I think I would enjoy it. So I think, at some point, I might explore that later on in my life. I also feel like we live so long. I'm just in my 30s. I'm in my mid 30s. And I just feel like maybe I should acquire a little bit more life experience. And
I
then
mean,
I'll be able to explore,
listen,
that.
people want to hear your trauma.
Ugh.
Whether if it's through comedy or not, people do want to hear it. So I'm just gonna put that right there. Oh, this is awesome. Anything else coming up for you that you want to share or have you been noticing, I guess?
Mm. I've been thinking a little bit about like with the open root, I find that have you heard of rushing woman syndrome? Like she's a woman and she always like rushing around, like rush to do this and rush to do that, and rush, 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 rush. I find that I'm always in a rush, but I'm really trying to like not be in a rush. It's okay to just sit on the couch and sit. It's okay to like clean slowly because you're maybe enjoying it. I don't know. I don't enjoy cleaning, but also working on that. Um, but just I'm not rushing around like in a hurry. So like I think about when I used to have to take my daughter to school. My saint of a husband does that now. I would be like, come on, let's go, let's go. We're gonna be late. Come on, come on, come on, come on. But it's like we don't. No, we're not. We're totally on time. Like we don't live that far away. And so I'm just finding that I'm really trying to like put that rushing situation to bed. Like we're here to have a human experience, to live. So like the only thing that we're here to do is live. So why are we rushing to live? We should can just live, you
Amen.
know.
I see two pieces to that. The first being that you're likely around people who have a defined root center when you're feeling that, or maybe you just had a call with someone with a defined root, whatever, because that pressure is going to be amplified in you.
Mhm.
And at your natural state, when you're alone, you probably don't feel that sense of rush. If you do, which actually this is probably even if you don't, like we have been conditioned by our parents, our caregivers, whoever, to act a certain way. Like with
Mhm.
me, that rushing, yes, I have a defined route, but also that rushing is so, it just resonates with me so much because that's how I was raised. Like we would
Mhm.
get to the airport hours early and still be rushed into the airport transport, still be rushed through security. Like, gotta get there, gotta get there, gotta get there. And we'd be there like at the gate like an hour and a half early. And I'm like, why did we rush? And then I would start to see, of course, when you have kids, you start to see all your shit
Oh,
come to light,
such a little mirrors.
right? So I
Little
started to
mirrors.
notice where I was rushing my oldest, and I was like,
Mhm.
"But why? Why am I doing this?" And then I realized, "Oh, this parent and this person in my life was always rushing me." And we are just constantly acting based on literally our DNA and the way we've been conditioned to respond to things.
Mhm.
And if we just stop for a minute and create awareness and ask, like, do I really need, like, why? Do I need to be rushing right now? Is this a thing? Like, am I
Do
actually
I
20
want
minutes
to
late?
be?
Or, yeah, right? And it's changed so much. It's changed so
Mhm.
much. And I'm very that's one of the things I'm very conscious about with my kids. I still
Mhm.
fall into it sometimes. And I'm
Mhm.
like,
Well, we're just people.
yeah. And then I just
Yeah.
take a breath and I figure out how to ask them nicely to put their fucking shoes on
That's
because we really need to go.
Can you get your coat,
Yes,
please?
'cause I know how much that rushing feeling has been detrimental to my life and to my anxiety,
Mhm.
and, like, I do not want my kids to have to feel that way, so
Yeah.
I resonate with that a ton.
Yeah. It's something that we noticed like her doing. And so she's 13. So like we're having like conversations around it where she's a super cool kid. I mean, I know everybody says that, but we're just having conversations about like, is this urgent? Is this important? Like, do we need to rush around? And so just trying to help her notice those things so that she can like walk backwards from them.
I like that, walk backwards. You're just full of
Mhm.
the good words today. I like it. Is it that Defined Head Center? I don't know, I'm
It
eating it
must
up.
be.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. Where can people connect with you? What do you wanna let them know about, like, where you show up in the online space?
Yeah, so I am writing blogs at threegrovesmarketing.com. So if you want to learn a little bit about marketing management or maybe some paid ads on Facebook and Instagram, you can do that at my website. And I'm hanging out on Instagram. And so my Instagram handle is 3groves. So you can also find me there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. This was fantastic. What
You're
a great
welcome.
first podcast interview.
Oh, good, I'm glad. I was like, "Oh god, I hope she doesn't hate this."
No, so good.